of the weaknesses of the United Kingdom education system is what's known as the long tail of underachievement. One of the reasons we know about it is the amount of data that's now available. And whereas that data shows that in very many areas, we're at the top of the international table or towards the top of the international table, as far as breaking the link between social class and educational attainment, we're almost at the bottom. It's not that we've not tried to solve this problem. Millions of pounds have been spent on it. But despite all that effort, despite all the resources, the fact is that we have still not broken that link between social class and educational underachievement. There are those schools that have made progress in closing this attainment gap. I'm going to visit some and talk to their heads and teachers. What's worked for them? What's their explanation as to the causes of the problem? What do they think still needs to be done? And of course, to see if it's possible to replicate their success across the whole school system. Groups of children underachieving isn't a new problem, but there has been a lot of research published recently. Robert Casson is the joint author of a report published by the Joseph Rowntree Foundation.
We found, contrary to what you hear a lot of the time about badly performing ethnic minorities, that by many measures, the white British children are doing much worse than they should. And really what our report is about poverty and disadvantage, and it's those children who are behind before they ever get to school, whose problems are not being picked up in primary school, and then various ways in which disadvantage is unhelpful to them in secondary school. So yes, it runs right the way through. Of course, lots of them make it.
I was going to say that there's a real danger, isn't there, that we almost imply all poor children do badly. Of course, children from less affluent backgrounds can and do succeed. I spoke to Professor Stephen Gorard from the University of Birmingham about the difference in attainment in children from similar backgrounds.
I think children can learn very early on in their lives from their peers, from their family, from everything that's going around them, whether education is something for them or not. So perhaps not reaching their full potential because they're just thinking, actually, this is not for me.
Yeah, but to some extent that's almost an attitude thing. So you could have somebody who's from the poorest of backgrounds but had that attitude at home that education is for me. And I think what you're saying is those are the kids from the deprived backgrounds who do actually achieve.
Of course, yes. There's nothing determinist about this.
So the attitude, if you like, outplays the deprivation or the background.
I think it can do, yes.
The academics agree. Poverty is often an obstacle to academic achievement, but it can be overcome. I visited 4 schools, all of which are achieving excellent results, despite having 2 or 3 times more children on free school meals than the national average. My first stop was a primary school in Hackney. Millfields Community School had a reputation as a sink school, but has improved dramatically over the past decade. Leading this turnaround is the head, Dame Anna Hassan.
I felt that in order to raise the standards in this school, I needed a 3-way process. I needed to work on the children, I needed to work with the staff, and I needed to work on the parents as well. And so that's the way we move forward.
Let's just talk a little bit about the importance you place on working with parents. But you're saying that the school's important, but unless you tackle what's going on at home, are you saying it almost makes it impossible for the school to deliver the goods?
I am saying that. Unless I got the parents on board to support us by helping them to understand what needs to happen to support their children, what about the rigour, what about going to bed early, what about not allowing them to watch TV all the time, what about them coming in and asking us, well, what are we doing? This is what we're doing, this is how you can support us.
And what kind of response do you get from the parents?
It was very slow to start because parents weren't used to coming into the school, and in fact I had to go and stand out in the playground, which I do every day anyway, and talk to the parents and actually treat them with respect.
Anna's work with parents started years ago when the Millfields site housed only a primary school. Now it's an extended school with a children's centre, after-school clubs and a base for community learning. As results improved, the middle classes who previously avoided the school began to send their children there.
That has really helped the balance of the school. It has really upped the ante. It has raised aspirations in class. It has done a lot.
The social mix has made it easier. Would it have been possible without that social mix?
That's a difficult question. I think that perhaps we may have had some difficulty because aspirations are very important, and a lot of our children are now mixing. Before, many of our children didn't mix with the middle class families. Although we have the high expensive houses very close to the school, many of those families didn't choose this school. They were going elsewhere. They now come, and I think it has helped, you know, because the children come in and they go to each other's houses. The parents now talk and they meet with each other and so on.
We're going to have some nice ice cream.
Integrating the community into the school has obviously helped raise standards at Millfields, but it's not the only way they motivate their children to learn.
Okay, so very pleased to have a green garden in our school.
Oh, it is green. Kim Price, responsible for extended services at Millfields, showed me round their new roof garden.
We've got our wormery, which children are completely fascinated with.
Oh, wow. The garden is not just used for growing plants, fruits and vegetables. It's also used for art classes and even inspires the children to eat healthily.
We have one child who didn't eat any vegetables at all, and he loved them, wolfed them down, so we sent some green beans home with him for his parents to give him for tea that night.
We'll do that now.
Yes.
Yeah.
And to see the little ones up here with watering cans watering, it's just beautiful.
Anna and Kim place a huge emphasis on tracking the progress of every pupil who walks through the door. Like Robert Kassan in his report, they know that a large number of white working class children are lagging behind.
If you look at it in percentage terms, each of these minority ethnic groups is around 2% of the total. Nearly 80% of all students are white and British. They have the most persistent low achievers. So more of them, if they have a bad start, are still doing badly at age 16.
This is true for primary and secondary schools. Kim has experience in both.
They start disappearing actually from the statistics in a sense.
Just vanish, don't
They
turn up.
vanish, their truancy figures are higher.
Yeah.
You see a higher exclusion rate among the ethnic minority pupils, but a lot of the potential white working class children have already made the decision that school is not for them. They are not going to get anything worthwhile out of it. In a sense, almost that they don't need it.
What age do you think that starts?
I think it starts around as early as year 8. And I would have said possibly later, but they have already built up that feeling of failing in the system from a very, very early age.
That's when it comes to light almost, it's not when it actually starts. Very interesting. It's inspiring to see what Millfields offers the community. But with all schools, funding can be an issue. So how do they afford it?
Belligerents, looking very, very hard to find the money and making applications where we see possibilities. I think we're very good at knowing what we want to achieve and where our priorities are and where our needs are.
Let's stop there. That means sometimes that the school takes a decision to invest in the under 5s,
Yes.
which, you know, not taking SATs, not in the performance tables, because you know that's where it might make the difference.
Yes.
Milan, why don't you sit down over there?
Why do other schools not make it? I mean, this is one of, for politicians, this is one of the great mysteries. We've got you here, we've got standards that have increased, you've had the same initiatives, you've not had that much more money than similar schools would have. Why does it work here and why doesn't it work elsewhere?
Well, I think, I mean, I never believed this before, but more and more I'm come to the point of leadership, and that's about developing leadership in school. It's not about one person, the head. It's about having a team of leaders. It needs more than being just a good teacher, because being a leader is a different kettle of fish. And I think you need to be courageous. You need to just, we're very courageous here. We don't listen to anybody who don't agree with them.
Determination and courage are just as important as policy, it seems. With strong leadership, community partnerships and a focus on early years, Millfields seems to have found a successful formula. But what works in a secondary school? I went to see Sir Michael Wilshaw, Principal at Mossbourne Community Academy, also in Hackney. Michael has a history of turning around troubled schools. He too talked about the importance of what happens at home.
You've got to presume that youngsters do go home, sometimes in very difficult situations. You've got to presume that there's no one there to monitor their homework or even to give them an evening meal. So in that sort of environment, the school has to become, in a sense, a surrogate parent for lots of these children.
Like Millfields, Mossbourne is an ethnically mixed school. I asked Michael whether he used the same techniques for raising attainment with all his pupils.
I certainly, as a head, don't particularly start off with the question, is this a white youth or is this an Afro-Caribbean youth? The question I always ask is, on the basis of what we've seen before now, is this child on track? In the schools that I've led, I've made assessment of a key issue to ensure that we track pupils' progress on a regular basis. We do it here once every half term, and we make sure that we identify underachievement at an early stage. And once we've identified that underachievement, we work on it and employ a huge range of strategies to improve results. What won't work is to have a system in the school where you don't spot it early enough. If you leave it too late, it ain't going to work.
Is there something that's still missing? You wake up in the morning and think, if only the government would do that, or if only research told us that.
What I don't want is to turn up tomorrow morning and have another wad of paper on my desk announcing another major initiative. What we've got to do now is to make sure that we build a good infrastructure, hence a place like this.
That's important.
But also that we ensure that we have good quality people, because people make the difference at the end of the day. We shouldn't be too pessimistic. After all, it's only in the last 10 to 15 years that education has been given the priority that I think it deserves. Now there's a political will to make the difference. Now more money is coming in, and people are worrying in the way that they're doing at government level about the attainment gap and about reducing it. I think you'll see over the next 20 to 50 years major improvements in closing that gap.
That seems a long time, but I suppose it is a generational change. One of the most striking things about Robert Casson's report was what it said about a group of white working class children who fall behind by the age of 3 and never catch up. Stephen Gorard explains why he thinks this happens.
There are particular families, and they're living in particular areas and regions of the country, who have, say, several generations who've left school at the earliest opportunity and have minimal educational qualifications, and perhaps have long-term histories of unemployment. I think that's probably the biggest single difficult to change group.
I went to Sunderland, a city rebuilding itself following the closure of its mines and shipyards. It's predominantly white, with very little inward migration from either overseas or from other parts of the United Kingdom. Its results are improving significantly, but still too few young people carry on in education after leaving school. Sandhill View is a success story. This secondary school has improved examination performance from 15% 5A stars to C's in 1998 to 71% by 2006. 5 years ago, it moved into a building on a new site which also serves the wider community. I asked the head teacher, Richard Bain, how important this move had been in improving standards.
I think very important. I suppose that the old building was very, very negative. It gave the message, these children aren't really worth very much because this is all we're offering them. But that's been turned round, and it's not just the school, but it's actually what it offers for the community. So the sports facilities which are used by the community library, we've now got a health drop-in centre on site. And I think parents now see the school as being part of the community facilities, and they identify with the school much more.
How important is that link between home and school in trying to really turn around a school and raise standards?
I think it's crucial. If we've got the parents with us and supporting us, we can make very much more of a difference. I think for us, we see the key issue with our pupils as being their aspirations, and we need to both to change pupils' aspirations for themselves, but also the parents aspirations for their children. So we need to be engaging with both if we're going to make any change to that.
I mean, I make the assumption that probably most of your parents haven't themselves been to university.
Yes, that would be the case.
And
yes.
on the whole, not got professional jobs that have needed lots of qualification beyond school. So that's a big cultural change for parents, isn't it?
It is, and if you can't get them in to talk to them, you can't start to make those changes. But I think we are getting a much better dialogue with our parents.
As with Millfields, it seems that involving parents is key to raising aspirations and attainment. But what else works?
We do a great deal of work in terms of pupil tracking.
Right.
And so knowing exactly which pupils are underachieving in which subjects, and not just in which subjects, but which parts of which subjects. And then targeting those pupils, and particularly ensuring that where there is coursework, that they get the coursework completed. And if we can do that, they then do get the results at the end.
So there's always a debate that coursework disadvantages boys. So what you've done is almost, you can see that you acknowledge it, but you do something about it by putting in.
That's right.
Support.
You know, there is somebody standing over them, making sure that the coursework actually gets done and gets completed and isn't pushed aside and forgotten.
So, I mean, you're basically talking about tailor-made support for each child. Is there a gender difference in the support that you're offering? Is that the way it works out when you actually look at what you're doing?
Not really. No. Some of the techniques that we were using with boys, the girls picked up on, and that was one of the reasons that the girls maintained their lead.
Richard has used all the flexibility on offer to make the Key Stage 4 curriculum more appropriate for his students.
We have a wide range of vocational courses, and those are very successful with pupils that you would expect to be disaffected, and a large number of those are actually turned round once they start becoming engaged with those vocational courses.
And presumably then are able to continue the vocational courses post-16 as well?
Yes, but the exciting thing is it doesn't just change their attitude to the vocational courses, it changes their attitude to everything that they're doing in school. It gives them a sense of worth, a sense of purpose, and they then go back to their English and their maths with much greater motivation and much greater success.
Yes.
And all of which are skills that will benefit them in their further studies.
There is no doubt that Sandhill is an improving school. But what about those pupils who are harder to reach, the ones still not fulfilling their potential?
I think for us, we would like to be able to apply some of the principles that we've applied at Key Stage 4 more at Key Stage 3, and so adapt the curriculum more and engage pupils earlier. At the end of Key Stage 3, we have a number of pupils who are disaffected with what we're offering at that stage. Key Stage 4 engages them more. If we could engage them earlier on in Key Stage 3, that would make a difference.
Is that a decision you can take, or do you need somebody else to take a decision in order for you to do that?
QCA are changing the curriculum at Key Stage 3, giving schools much more freedom, and that's exciting. An issue is whether you really trust them, because they're saying, well, you can do different things, but the SATs actually are staying the same, and you feel that the assessment is actually determining a great deal of what you're doing.
Whereas at Key Stage 4, you've had the flexibility to choose different forms of assessment to reflect the teaching patterns.
Yeah.
A mile or so down the road, Highfields Primary School focuses on the performing arts to raise attainment. The head, Jane Caldwell, knows her pupils well and what it takes to bring out the best in them.
We know this is an area of great deprivation, but they come in here and they enter a different world, and this is a world where what's going on outside is less important. What goes on inside here is more important. One here.
Right. Beautiful animals.
Yes. The artist who came in has painted a different one on each wall. So this is the panda room, if you like.
Oh, the children love this.
Yes, yeah.
They're beautifully done, aren't they,
yes.
the paintings?
We have parents who come into school to train, to gain accreditation for teacher training, but we also have parents who are keen to come in and work alongside their children. They come in and dance with their children. They learn how to help their children. They learn how to use books. They visit libraries, they buy books, they go out on trips to buy books.
Nice to see you. How are you? Very pleased to see you. Highfields is an inspirational environment for the children, and like the other schools we visited, they try to inspire the parents as well.
It was part of how we looked at what we were doing. Why aren't we better? We've done all the things that you're advised to do. Why aren't we better?
That's a cultural change.
Well, we looked differently at what we were doing during the week. We thought, well, by Wednesday, everybody's complaining that children have had enough. So instead of trying to make the children fit the curriculum, we said, well, let's make a curriculum that fits our children. I think you have to know your school and your children and your staff very well to be able to do that, and to have the confidence to step out on your own. So we did that. Thursday became a more practical day, and then Friday is performing arts throughout the day and sport.
And how's it worked for the children?
Excellently. Our results just took off.
What is it about creativity that you think raises standards right across all areas of the curriculum?
I think the most important thing is the raising of self-esteem, because a lot of children have the can't-do idea of anything new, and we try to create a can-do atmosphere in this school. As a nation, we're not good at shouting our own praises. Now, that's not so here. I think that teachers as well are so used to being criticised and urged to do better that they forget how good they are. But you see, that's the role of a head teacher. I feel that my job is to publicise the excellence that takes place here, and I enjoy doing that.
That's at local level, that's what heads can do in their own school to create this culture. Can government do it from a national level, and have any of those initiatives helped you at all?
Well, those initiatives that probably carried some money attached will have done some good. I think Every Child Matters was a clever way of stating in 5 sound bites, if you like, all that was needed. I think if every school delivered Every Child Matters, then and believed in that philosophy, then I think that would go some way towards turning things round. I think a big step and a big leap in faith on the government's part would be to do away with the SATs. I think teacher assessment has become so accurate now and so skilled that if this could be done, it removes an enormous pressure on schools that at the moment are not achieving well. You know, it must be a dread to come out. To wait for the league tables to come out and think, oh my goodness, you know. I mean, in any table, no matter how well everybody does, there's got to be someone at the top and someone at the bottom.
Are you an optimist about our ability as a nation to really close the attainment gap?
Absolutely. I mean, if we can get it right, then anyone can. There's no magic formula. And I've been asked, can we have a copy of your creative curriculum? But that's not what works. You have to know your children, know your school. What is it that isn't happening here? Now, performing arts is our solution, but it mightn't be yours. Might be sport, might be IT, it might be something else. But that sits on a very firm foundation of tracking and target setting. And I think the big answer is it's nothing magic or different about what's going on here. It's what's possible, but you do have to know your school. And it doesn't always happen.
Sunderland and Hackney might be hundreds of miles apart in very different places, but the schools all use data as one of their tools to raise standards. When I returned to London, I wanted to know if we could do any more with data, so I spoke to Dr. Ian Shagan, the head statistician at the NFER.
I don't think that nationally we always collect the right sort of data in order to help us to understand the mechanism which would lead to underachievement. What we don't have is the stuff which is about pupils' attitudes to reading, attitudes to their subject, but also attitudes to school, whether they feel safe, whether they're being bullied. and also parental attitudes, parental motivation, you know, how they feel about education. All these things I think can be quite important in terms of underachievement.
And it's reliable data?
It can be, because actually, you know, our experience, if you ask the right questions and collect the data carefully in such a way that pupils feel that their opinions are valued, that they won't go straight back to the teachers, that they can reply in confidentiality, that we find that we actually can get reliable and accurate scales.
What you're saying there is, let's ask questions that really explain why those children are underachieving rather than just who they are. So it's more as how's it happen? It's breaking down their lifestyle, what happens to them in school and at home, and trying to understand better so we can do something about it.
Yes, I mean, if you really want to know why children aren't achieving, why not ask the experts? Why not ask the children themselves?
There are no easy solutions or quick fixes, and the roots of the problem go beyond the school gates. In the 4 schools we've visited, there's a similarity in what's worked for them, but individuality in how it's been implemented. But the question that's been most difficult to answer is why the problem is greater in the United Kingdom than elsewhere. I suspect it's a reflection of wider society as much as it is of our schools. It's our attitude to class and poverty and our national ambition. As Sir Michael Wilshaw observed, we've only been taking the attainment gap seriously for the last 10 to 15 years. But it's schools that will continue to be the focus in taking us forward.